Alright everyone, Vox is one of the lowest of the low of the legacy media yellow journalist sort of gossip tabloids of the modern era, along with Salon and HuffPost and certainly some others. Breitbart is quickly going that way. The Blaze went there a long time ago, like fucking Glenn Beck and shit like that. People that are like, disingenuous. They write weird, the Young Turks, something along those lines. But Vox is trying to become the most crazy. And so they ran a hit piece that I guess was about Trump golfing with a family, and I guess the story is, and I'm not sure whether they mean this to be true or if it's just illustrative of like what they think about Trump. It's not immediately clear whether they're intending this to be like a sort of satire or not, and they probably should make that clear. But I guess the story goes that he was like golfing with a dude and his kid, and he hit his ball in the water. But then he like stole the kid's ball and then said, no, you're the one that hit it into the water, and was like really surreal and stuff. I'm trying to think, does this not sound like one-dimensionality? Usually when something conforms to a one-dimensional caricature, it's usually propaganda. That is that, like if you're trying to label someone as pure evil, like if you want them to be your modern Hitler or Manson or something, you don't want to admit anything good about them. You want it to be solely negative. It turns them into a caricature. It turns them into like a cartoon movie villain. The thing is that at some point you run out of legitimate criticism. You run out of even plausible criticism, and you start doing something like this, which is that you start saying weird shit like, again, you think of Hitler. Back in the 40s, we're like, okay, Butcherus was losing his marbles towards the end. He was getting shaky and weird, arguably demented or something. And had various problems, maybe even a relationship sense. But now you've got things like, oh, he might have had one testicle, he was probably gay, he was dying of syphilis, and sort of the other things that conform to that one-dimensionality. The problem is, eventually you overstretch it and it just becomes cartoonish. It no longer is realistic, and eventually people are like, what are you trying to say? Like next it's like he tried to build an army of robots to take over, Antarctica or something. With Trump, it's he steals kids' golf balls, he's fucked his daughter, that's a claim that's been made about him, and this weird he beats his wife, and doesn't it seem one-dimensional? Like from these same groups, have you ever seen anything that Vox has written in the last 2 years that has been even remotely positive about Trump? Not even just like positive, but like neutral about him, just like, oh, here's some straight reporting. No, and you never will, because it's a propaganda effort, a very long-term and coordinated one to make Trump the next Hitler. It's basically what it boils down to. So in order for Trump to conform to that, he can't be the Trump that supposedly one time saved a dude from getting, beaten and robbed on the streets of Manhattan. He can't be Trump who got, some award for being friendly to black communities and he was sitting there smiling with Al Sharpton back in the 90s. He can't be Trump that cracks funny jokes on Stern and sort of makes light of the world. He can't be the anti-Iraq war Trump. He can't be those things because they don't conform to the propaganda. They have to be ignored and covered up as much as possible by the groups attempting to do this. That's the mimetic effort behind it. It's exactly the same as the counterpart, the more grassroots one, I would say, of Trump fans. They will admit no weakness. The true, core MAGA fans, they'll literally refer to him as a god emperor and make memes about that. They won't admit that anything particularly that he has done has ever been wrong. Like, for instance, early on I criticized him on CIA black sites. He suggested reopening them, and I think he was stymied in that. I don't think it ended up happening. But it was a suggestion that was made. A serious one, not like, the flag-burning thing, which was a smack at Hillary Clinton. That one was tongue-in-cheek, although I had to, out of principle, come out and oppose that, or a serious strike. Some of the things that Trump has done that I don't support. But if you're part of that more propagandistic, propaganda-minded crowd, you're not going to admit that you'll basically get cognitive dissonance and talk about how those are acceptable. Oh, CIA black sites aren't that bad, you would say. Or, oh, the Styria strikes, they were okay because it was limited. It didn't start a war or something. Retrospectively, it's okay because it didn't have any civilian casualties. So you get to start thinking these ways. This is how partisan politics work, too. It really is. You think, well, Democrat good, Republican bad. Republican good, Democrat bad. And it's just very, very limited. Artificially limiting information input is a good form of mind control, basically. If you can determine what information a person is privy to, you can literally control their decision-making. An algorithm could figure it out. Look, we've got the technology now. If you were to spend a few years and a few $1 million studying it, you could predict human behavior pretty damn well as long as you can limit the input. It's really the limitation of input that you need in order to control such a study, which is exactly why Silicon Valley is trying to limit our input. It's why they're burning books right now in the digital sense. It's why we must stop them at all costs. Now, Vox is obsessed. This is literally, I mean, this is yellow journalism taken to the on steroids. There's no other way to put it. If you were to put this in the Inquirer or the Weekly World News, would it seem out of place as a story? No, it would seem right at home. That's when you know that groups like Vox and Salon, and even now like the CNNs and New York Times, really they've fallen on hard times. They just can't wean themselves off of the tabloid heroin. And Trump, by the way, doesn't mind being turned into a caricature. It works well for him, because then he can break that caricature at any given time with his decision making. It also creates a counterpart of people that are very much for him that he doesn't have to worry about the loyalty of. They're creating the partisan monster that they themselves perceive. It's very interesting to watch the legacy media basically be given enough rope to hang itself in the fiscal sense. Because what's going to happen when Trump's no longer there? What are they going to write about? They'll probably have to still sensationalize about him. Oh, where's Trump now? Trump spotted in bathroom at Mar-a-Lago. Trump shakes hands with person that we have labeled bad. We've labeled him an extremist. Oh, we told you that Trump was screwing his daughter. Here's 3 times Trump got caught looking sideways at Ivanka or something like that. You know, they'll keep running things into the ground long after he'll be dead and buried, and they'll still be talking about him. Which means he got his wish. Look, before he was even elected, I said fundamentally what Trump wants is the triple crown: money, power, and fame. Those are the 3 things, and they go hand in hand. If you're rich, you tend to become powerful. If you're powerful, you tend to be famous, and so forth. He was already famous. He's got The Apprentice, he's got his pageantry, multi-billionaire, Stern Insider, part of wrestling, and everything else under the sun. Back in the 90s and 2000s, had his hands in literally everything. Fucking, he's even famous. When he loses money, he makes money. Just because his name is out there, because of the way he brands himself. Even being a loser makes him a winner. He's got a perfect strategy. People don't even comprehend it. So he's got all the fame in the world. He already had the money. He's a billionaire multiple times over. He makes several $100 million a year. You can't even imagine the amount of wealth that the man makes. He can spend $100,000 a day on whatever he wants, and he won't even miss it. And that's a drop in the bucket compared to his overall income. So he's got that. What he wanted was power. Now, for someone like Trump, larger-than-life caricature that he is, the only thing you can be is president. He can't be. He could run for he could have been mayor of New York. That would be prestigious, but it wouldn't have been enough. Hell, he has more unofficial power just as Donald Trump, the businessman, than the mayor of New York has. He could run roughshod over the goddamn city of New York. Back when he had a D after his name, fundamentally, he could have gotten 70-80% of the vote easy. He said, yeah, I want to lower the taxes. I'm Donald Trump. Look, I'm the most New York person in the world. Fucking vote for me. Who would have stood up against him? Who would have opposed Trump if he had run 20 years ago for mayor of New York? Nobody. He would have run unopposed. Nobody would have wanted to have to deal with that. Could have gotten 100% of the vote. Nobody would have voted against him. Nobody would have called him a racist or an extremist, that's for sure. Wouldn't be enough, though. If he's going to take time out of his private endeavors, which are so lucrative, the only thing he wanted to be was president of the United States. And there he's got it. He's the ultimate success story. People are going to be talking about Trump 100 years from now. Most people are going to say, what a fuckwad. They hate him. He's going to be their one-dimensional villain. People who understand, I think, that dynamic, the power dynamic that he has in mind more, are going to say, well, he was one of the greats. He's an American success story. They should write books about him. And I don't mean negative ones that say that he's got a small Yeti-pubed penis, like Stormy Daniels said, with a mushroom head and weird shit. By the way, she never discussed its length. I wonder why. Yeah, they should talk about him in that way. But Vox isn't what's going to cover something like that. Vox isn't going to say, fundamentally, this is the story of someone who rose from the upper middle class. You know, his father was well off and was kind of a bootlegging conniver, but, you know, so was the JFK family, so were the Clintons. It's very funny how they're projecting off on him, like, oh, his family was involved in criminal enterprises, which they can't even prove, by the way. Yeah, okay, what about the Kennedys? Yeah, they were no criminal activity there. America's family. They were the Democrats put them up on a pedestal. FDR's family, weird shit like that. Why do you think he ended prohibition? So people get drunk and forget how fucking miserable that things get under socialism. Population that's on a lot of mind-altering substances is more resistant to outside stressors, I suppose. Yeah, you're not going to hear from Vox about how Trump is basically the fucking story of the United States in the modern sense. And that seems hyperbolic, but it really is. Massively wealthy, massively famous, became president, self-made billionaire, extremely good at branding, has his hands in everything, his name's all over the world. How much more fucking American can you get? Yeah, he's got a big, bloated, gassy ego. Of course he does. It's Donald Trump. That's about all. Peace out.